a platform and shakes off that perfectionist. When I think of being a perfectionist for branding and marketing, I think of making sure you're not offending or confusing someone. Other than that, you're good to go. Portion on your phone.
You know, being in shelter in place, I think it's kind of hard for people to really focus on branding and focus on marketing, because they're, you know, concerned that they're losing their business. They're concerned that they're losing their jobs and things like that. Do you think that the public will show some empathy for companies who are struggling with social media or struggling with rollouts? Or do you think it's, if you're not in front of our faces, you're getting pushed in the dust?
Personally, I think they're going to be okay if they're quiet on social media. Obviously, that's going to help with any case. We're human, and I think we're all feeling the effects of it, and I think that's kind of what brands need to show right now, is that they are human. Behind every big brand, there are people, there are jobs, there are families and friends, and I think that's something that as a community and society, like, we need to recognize. And that's something that I've struggled with hearing on the news and everything, is just that people are eager to do certain things. And, you know, there's so many families that have been affected permanently because of this pandemic. And it's hard for people to relate unless it's happened to them personally. So I do think that these brands will be okay in a marketing perspective, as long as I would say personally, they should either stay silent during this time if they don't have anything good to say, or speak up. They can definitely connect with their audience on a different level, see what their audience needs. What does your consumer need? Is the price point too high now because of this pandemic? Can you listen to them, talk to them, see how you can help, which we've seen so many brands do good during this time. And it's going to go so far for brands that actually show how they can help change the world to be a better place than the brands that are trying to say, buy this, buy this, buy this. We're always being told, buy this. It's always on sale, check this out. All those hot words, that's always in our face. The market's saturated with marketing. So it's okay. And I do wonder if there will be some social media fatigue after the end of this. I was actually thinking about this today on a personal level, because I'm just a bit burnt out from being on social media all the time.
Interesting.
Even like posting, now that I have some more time, I'm posting stories more frequently, and I'm like, you know what? I need to take some time to myself. So I'm trying to limit myself to an hour max on Instagram personally. And we'll see how it goes. But I do think it'll be interesting to see how everything evolves. Obviously, media buys are going to change. I know Pinterest has a little bit of a lower price point for media. So it'll be interesting to see if people start putting money in the Pinterest area, knowing that a lot of people are also on Pinterest right now. I can say for myself, that's where I look for inspiration all the time for design. And with that, it'll be cool to see everyone was investing money in Instagram and Facebook prior to this, to see if anything shifts into different platforms, and seeing how certain brands can adapt to new platforms or join platforms. I know there's a lot of businesses that didn't use Zoom, and Zoom's now in a way a form of social media. And so I think that's just how these brands are adapting and being nimble and trying to figure things out, understanding to be patient. I think a lot of yoga instructors and fitness professionals have realized they don't understand all the camera stuff. It's okay if it takes
I'm still figuring out myself.
A few seconds to hit play or like turn the music on, people understand.
I mean, and I noticed that you have your main audience on Instagram. Why Instagram?
That's a very good question. So originally, I mean, I guess I was on Instagram before Instagram was a thing. And I actually shared all my artwork. And then I realized no one really cared at the time about my artwork. I was like, okay. Because Instagram was created for a social platform for creatives. It wasn't made for advertising and marketing. It was for artists to connect and share creative and visuals, beautiful photography. And that's how I started off. And then I started kind of building my way into the fitness industry, and the fitness industry, you got to promote yourself. And in order to promote yourself, you got to get people in the door. So I started pushing out on Instagram. So Instagram was my platform because it's more authentic to myself. That is where I authentically like build a brand, opposed to picking a platform and then trying to make it work. I kind of just felt it out and figured out which one was best for me. And I think that's for most brands should do that too. There's no right or wrong when it comes to what platforms you should be on. Sure, lock in all your domains on each one.
Yeah, for sure.
Just so you have them. But other than that, I think you just have to understand like who's engaging, who's not engaging. If you're on Instagram and that's where people are engaging and you see no one is engaging on Facebook, save your time and energy. I think that's something that to duplicate everything multiple times to hit all platforms, maybe your impressions will be higher. If that's something that's your goal and you want that, do that extra legwork. But otherwise, pick one, focus on it, master it. Can I swear?
You can swear. But don't worry, this is live now, but it's only on Instagram. When I put it on YouTube, we'll just put the bleep button. Yeah, you go ahead and
don't half-ass everything. Just commit to something and try to make it as strong as you can and as authentic as you can. And I think that's where brands will really shine, is not forcing yourself into a platform, but feeling it out and figuring out which one's most suitable for you. And that's the beauty of social media. You can try stuff and you can delete stuff. If you find that your audience did not really care for that photo, remove it. No one will ever know. Maybe there's 80 people that saw it, but otherwise just keep it there. Who cares? Like, if you only got 80 likes, it doesn't mean anything these days.
Well, you know, I feel like platforms come and go. So is it just knowing about adapting and when things are phasing out and phasing in? Is it just having that? Or is it, I mean, you said like don't spread yourself thin or half-ass anything. Is it just about learning to adapt?
It's definitely learning to adapt and understanding your generations. So if you think about when Facebook came out, and not to say that any of these platforms are outdated anymore, but as we've all seen, there's been a big uptick in TikTok. So we've all noticed that. I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm like, do I choreograph the dance or do I watch the dance and learn it? I'm asking all my like teen cousins. But I think it's just trying to figure out as a brand, how can you show what is the benefit you can give to your audience and your user through those platforms? And knowing I know my parents are more active on Facebook than I am. So knowing, okay, if it's an older demographic, they're going to spend a little bit more time on Facebook. They're still figuring out Instagram. So I believe it's really understanding your demographic and adapting to those new trends if it fits your demographic. Definitely. I can tell you my mom has no idea what TikTok is. So if she's Ann Taylor is going on TikTok, good luck.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like a lot of people in that older generation too, I find that they read everything and they comment every single time, which is, you know, great, but that's not the same reaction you get with the younger generations on Instagram or things like that. But they like fully read every post. They're really into it. You know, what are some misconceptions about branding?
Should I rebrand? I think that's the biggest thing. I've been in the industry, like I said, for 6 years, however long I've been out of college. I've rebranded lots of brands. And I also have noticed there are some brands that over-brand. Don't make things complicated. What
do you mean over-brand? Can you
elaborate?
Yeah.
So I've had clients that had a big company and wanted to brand with logos for each individual department. It's too much. It's too complicated. You just got to keep things simple. There's so much in the world right now to have a logo and color palette and all that stuff for 21 channels of your brand is too much. Streamline it. And you'll find some clients that they don't care. That's what they want. And you'll do it, but they'll find later on, wait, this is really expensive and timely. But that's also with expensive and timely. Looking at your brand and understanding why do you want to rebrand? A lot of people are just like, I'm bored with it. Doesn't mean that your audience is. Your audience isn't seeing it every day like you are. Target. Think of Target. The Target bullseye, the red. That red is everywhere during Christmas season, during the summer, I'm sure the designers and employees are like red, 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 red. But I've never been like, oh, I'm so bored of that red. It's brand equity. And you have to understand that equity is a lot when it comes to brands. I did rebrand a hospital a year ago who had the same logo for 60 years. So we did a brand refresh,
Okay.
which was necessary. And we looked at it and decided, why do we need to do this? But we didn't take it so far that we removed their colors. We wanted to make sure that they had a lot of equity in their green, so we kept that green. But we did notice that there was scalability problems with their current logo. And that's why we had to really look at it and rebrand it, because nowadays with social media and all that stuff, you're not printing large format all the time.
Right.
Things are smaller. How do you take a long logo with a word and make it into a profile picture?
Sure.
So things like that, and just kind of also looking at their demographic now. It was a hospital, and believe it or not, the woman of the household makes most of the medical decisions, according to our studies. So we wanted to figure out how can we make a logo that would speak to her, and figure out what would make her feel comfortable and encouraged and know that this is the best place to take her family.
Yeah. I mean, I have personally been using this pandemic, time without work to really rebrand. I have a whole new website, whole new company name, and really focusing on LinkedIn and YouTube and a few other little projects. Do you think this downtime is a good time to rebrand?
I think absolutely. I can say for myself as well, I've used the time to reevaluate my website and portfolio. As a creative, we don't usually have much time to put into our own design and creativity. It's usually doing stuff for clients. So I have been using that time, and I would highly recommend for any creative that might have some downtime right now to consider elevating or refining or taking a look at maybe the logo you made when you were in college that maybe it's not really you anymore, or streamlining things, making sure their copy is correct and no typos, etc. Brands, what I would say, I would suggest you may explore rebranding, get it all done, tie it with a nice little bow, wait, do not launch it. Have everything ready to go, prepare, so it's all ready together, because there is just so much going on right now in the world, and you don't want to belittle what's going on also. So you don't want to be like, hey, look at us, we're so fancy, we're so new, when the reality of it is a lot of stuff sucks right now. So I think it's making sure you're being respectful to the time and what's going on in the world. Sure, behind the scenes, go for it. Rebrand away, get everything all beautiful. So once this is all passed, you're ready to bring in more business, new business, and redefine if you need to redefine yourself and your brand, go for it. I do think bigger brands or product brands to do a whole new product photography and stuff like that. If you want to redo your back end of your website to make it more user friendly, introducing a new logo right now or new packaging, it might get lost, and that's usually a big selling point in the world of marketing. So I would suggest just holding tight for the launch, but definitely use the time to create that creativity and rebrand.
Yeah, and I think being sensitive about certain things, it's such a hard call for some. I saw this post that Mark Cuban said, this pandemic is going to redefine brands, how they react to this time. And so there were some bad reactions, and I wanted to get your opinion. So some bad reactions were the LA Lakers, Shake Shack, Ruth Chris, AutoNation all applied for the payroll protection plan and received it. Just 2 weeks after they this plan was launched, they said that the funds had been completely depleted. Most of these large companies have committed to returning the money. I'm not really sure how that's going to work, and even if it's going to, like how are you going to get that back to the government, and then that's going to get back to the small businesses? Like, I don't know. Do you think that they can recover from this?
I think they can recover. I think it will take some time. The human of me understands where they might have been coming from. When you're in a traumatic situation or this pandemic, you panic. Nobody knows how long this is going to go. Even larger businesses, I'm sure they just reacted, knowing that this would go fast. Did they really need it? Maybe they should have sat and evaluated that a little bit more before they just jumped at it, knowing that this is really more for others. But I also can say, not to get political, but who's reading these things on the other end? How did they get approved? Why was this not going to a smaller company and going to these large companies? And then to chime in about what Mark Cuban said, he's spot on. I agree hands down with him. Maybe it's because I was a Hoosier as well, but brands that step up and lead, like this is all about taking lead and showing what's right, are going to do so much better because they're going to bring in more loyal consumers than other brands that are kind of just like, it's nothing. I'm going to make my employees go to work because I need work.
Right.
Yeah, we all need it. But we have to put our health and safety of others first right now.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty reasonable reaction. You know, we don't really know exactly were the LA Lakers really concerned about like who that money was going to, all those things. Yes, they make a big profit. But it's just, I think it's going to be interesting to see, you know, and some people are so loyal to companies. I've seen so many things like boycott Ruth Chris. I'm like, my parents aren't doing that. Sorry. They love that steak. So I don't know. But some of the good company reactions, Disney chairman and CEO Bill Iger and the new CEO Chapik, I think I'm saying that wrong, both took a 50% pay cut to maintain the businesses. Do you think people are going to actually remember that when it goes to like Disney and Paramount picking those studios?
Yes and no. I think it's very kind of them to do that, and I think that's great, but it's also like, they probably make a lot, and that pay cut, probably what they're taking in right now could feed a family that needs it right now. So do I think it's going to make someone choose between the two? Probably not. I also feel like when it comes to finances and stuff like that, I don't necessarily as a consumer need to know the behind the scenes. Just because you take a pay cut as a CEO who's bringing in millions of dollars doesn't make me feel like you're a hero. It doesn't. It's more of what are you doing as a leader in this area? I mean, Bill Gates right now, he's like, my friend was talking about like, how is he so involved in all this science and vaccinations? I mean, it just goes to show, and I'm not like endorsing anyone right now, but not that I don't know if my endorsement
is Bill Gates endorsing you.
Yeah. But it just shows like he's not sitting there being like, I'm making this much money. No, he's making change. He's being proactive and he's trying to help the industry and help everyone get through this. Whereas these other people just taking a pay cut. Yeah. Maybe it's not enough.
Interesting. Yeah, definitely. I think what you're saying about going behind the scenes and not really having to know whether what you're doing, just get it done. Like you don't need to write an article about all these. Don't be so show off. Again, I think that's a little bit about like the intention behind that they have. Like, is that a marketing good or is it a marketing bad? So now we don't know. So I have a friend. I'm not going to call her out, but I'm going to call her situation out. She is an amazing fashion designer, amazing stylist, but has not gotten an Instagram because she's so worried about her brand, her look. How do you overcome this idea of perfection when it comes to your brand?
I think some of us can let go of that a little bit more than others. I would remind that friend that Instagram has a delete button. I think she's missing out by not being on the platform, and people are missing her artistic ability that she can share with the world, whereas it's now only a select amount of people can see it right now or know about it, whereas I think it's just something internally you just got to shake off and put out there because it's more of a internal thing. And I think as a creative, we all know that there is a mental aspect to it as much as there is of like the actual execution and pride that we take in our work. And just understanding that like
no worries.
Hi, dog. Hey. Oh, I'm gonna have to get the ball in a second.
Okay.
Hold on. Hey, you two, come here. But I do think she's missing out, which is unfortunate. I think there's still time to get out there and show people her creativity and not to get caught up in the numbers and how many people is following her. But obviously, the sooner she gets out onto a platform and shakes off that perfectionist. When I think of being a perfectionist for branding and marketing, I think of making sure you're not offending or confusing someone. Other than that, you're good to go. I think you just have to look at your content and branding and just be like, if it's off-center a lot, yes. Will it drive me absolutely crazy? Yes, because I'm a designer.
Yeah.
To the consumer, no. Are they going to hate you and say they're not going to buy anything from you? Probably not. Most won't notice. Not to say attention to detail isn't important. It definitely is in a brand, especially if you are paying someone to create something for you. You expect it to be buttoned up. But I think we just have to realize that we're all human and give ourselves a little bit of compassion and space to allow us to make those mistakes.
Yeah, and I think I definitely agree, and I think that we should all just like band together right now and say like F perfection. Like it does not need to always be perfect. You can delete it, you can tweak, you can always, like you're saying, like rebrand in certain ways. So it doesn't always have to be perfect. Your post doesn't have to be perfect, and
change your filter.
Yeah,
you're allowed to do it.
Black and white, baby. That one always works for me. You've done an amazing job celebrating and sharing your brain surgery recovery. Can you talk a little bit about your story and how that's turned into creating the Sweat Cause?
Absolutely. Hold on, let me grab the phone.
You're good. We had the other day I had Burley barking in the background for about 3 minutes. It was like the post office, the post guy was here for the mail, and it was just, you know.
There we go. Now they're just going to join.
Okay. There we go.
Just wanted the ball. Oh, you two were sleeping before, and I thought this was perfect. So let's see. I think I've been talking a lot with my therapist and my doctors lately, especially during this time. A lot of deja vu for me. This pandemic has brought a lot of kind of familiar territory, to say the least. This social distancing has actually kind of been my norm for the past 2.5 years. I can't go into grocery stores, big events, too much for me. I had a tumor in the back of my cerebellum, which had to be removed, and with that caused a lot of, not complications, but side effects that will affect the rest of my life. With that, I gained a new perspective on life, knowing after overcoming what I did. All right, dogs. They're playing. Milo, Freddie. But I felt when I did get sick that I lost my identity. I identified myself as a creative and a fitness guru. I no longer could do either of them for months, if not almost a year. So with that, I tried to figure out how I could get back to the community and what I could do, and that's where Sweat Cause came up. It took a lot of time for me to recover, and I'm still recovering to this day, to figure out what was authentic and made sense to me, because I didn't necessarily want to like sell something at the time to raise money. I wanted to help bring more awareness to certain things, and that's where Sweat Cause came in, because when I was sick, I would have done almost anything to walk on my own, to go for a run, to take a yoga class. I lost all that when I was sick, and I couldn't do that. And I think that's what I wanted to share with people, is like, sweating is a gift.
Yeah.
Not everyone has the capabilities, and I think now is a great example of that. Is there are so many people out there right now that would do anything to switch or trade places with somebody. And I hate for anyone to compare losses. I'm not about that. I don't think one person has it worse than another. We all react to trauma and things differently. But I do think people need to realize that there are a lot of small things that is a gift, and that they should really own it and love it. And so that's where Sweat Cause came in, where it is a event-based class, whereas we organize a fitness event and raise money for specific charities, depending on what studio is hosting it and what instructor. So what the beauty of it is just trying to figure out what charity is closest to somebody. So we're not always just picking brain tumor charities that's closest to my heart. However, there's other people that have charities that they want to raise money for and build awareness for. We are hoping to work on, hopefully after this is all done, is Box for Teen Fox, which will be a boxing event for Parkinson's. Also really close to my heart, trying to find if there's someone in the boxing industry that maybe has been affected by it or is a huge supporter. So there's a little bit of a personal connection than just picking a charity.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, how do you continue to tell your story and keeping your material fresh? I mean, your IG is filled with like motivation, it's filled with your fitness, it's filled with, storytelling. Is it having a mix of all these things to really keeping it fresh, or what's, how have you been so successful at it?
It's quite interesting to see kind of how my Instagram has actually evolved over time, is what I've, as like a personal branded individual. And it really showed authenticity and how important it is. At first, I wasn't comfortable sharing what happened to me and that I was sick and got diagnosed because like my whole entire family was very surprised by my diagnosis. But then I realized, like, what was I ashamed of? Like, there was nothing. If I needed support more than ever, it was then. So I started sharing it, and that's actually kind of when everything took off. And when I shared some of the darker moments, trust me, I didn't share them all.
Yeah.
What was appropriate to share of certain things that I've had to, obstacles that have been in place for me. A lot of people could relate. There's a lot more people than I expected, and not brain tumor survivors. I've had many different types of cancer survivors. I've had people that have gone through MS, that are young and diagnosed with MS, that are too nervous to tell anyone and nobody knows. And they DM me and message me saying that they're grateful that I've shared my story because it's given them the power to feel more confident themselves. And if that helps one person, then I feel great about sharing my story. To be able to help others and just know that people aren't alone through all of this, because it's not easy and there's no book to medical trauma.
Maybe there will be, Erin. Maybe there will be. Maybe you'll write one.
I have a chapter in a book.
Okay.
But I think it's just people understanding that they aren't in it alone, that there are people to listen, and not being okay is completely normal, and it's okay. And I think that's another thing that I've bringing back to pandemic is there was a case in Chicago that a lawyer went into his office for a couple of days who was diagnosed with COVID-19. Wasn't aware of it at the time, but was not feeling well. And when I read that, I'm like, that's our society. We have so much pressure on ourselves to go in sick.
Totally.
There was one day I even asked my former employer if I didn't know our protocol, and I was like, I don't feel real well, and they're like, if you don't have a fever, you can come in. So it's just kind of like understanding that like health and wellness is not just 101-degree fever. Right. And I think that's something that we're all starting to realize through this, that it's better to stay at home and work from home remotely than going in. You're not proving anything to anyone. So I think that's something that I've really kind of learned myself the hard way through my recovery and rushing through it, because I wanted to get back to normal. That if I had just taken the proper time, I wouldn't necessarily still be in the place I am right now. Maybe I'd be a little bit more back to my norm. And I think that's just something, when it comes to my content, I try to think of kind of like what's going on in the world and how I'm feeling about it, and share it. Obviously making sure I don't offend anyone, and disclose I am not a doctor or a health expert. But I just think social media can be used for the good or evil, and I just hope that I can find that good and keep pushing that good out there, and I hope others pick up on that and do the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's amazing what you're doing, is just allowing people to know that they're not alone. And, congratulations on all of your recovery success so far. And I, hope that everything goes well. But I definitely think that there's a stigma to like mental health in our industry and, being sick. I know I have a friend who, her husband just works like 16 hours a day, and they all do this. They all work like holidays and Saturdays and things like that. And I'm like, where do you set the scale? Because the thing is, when someone's working so much, how do you get promoted? Like, oh, I never took a sick day. I never do this. Like, who gives a crap? Like, are you actually good at what you do? Like, are you getting things done? It's not about the hours you put in and things like that. It's about creating something that creating results. So I think that we're starting to see this shift, and I think a lot more people are talking about it, and I think that's what we have to keep doing, is just keep talking about it, so that it just kind of trickles up or trickles down either way to get us all on the same page.
I had a creative director at my first job, Adam Selwyn, phenomenal man. He's out in New York now with another PR agency. And I remember when I started my job, he said that I should never be working till late hours in the night. He goes, if you are, then you need to let me know, because that means you're being distributed too much work. And there's ways to go about that. But he wanted to make sure, he goes, I'm not going to be impressed if you're working till 2 a.m. If you're working till 2 a.m., it either means you're not efficient and not using your time wisely, or you're giving too much work. And we need to address that. But he's like, for those that send me emails at 2 a.m. to show that they're still working, he's like, they're not a hero. And to have a leader like that, like, it's always stuck with me, how important that is to also pass on to any designers that I mentor, to make sure they understand that there is balance, and it's being efficient and speaking up, and knowing that they're not going to get in trouble for speaking up or complaining about having too much work. I'll know when it's too much work, but it also has made me pay attention a lot closer to when I was managing designers, their hours, to make sure they still have a life, because burnout is real.
For sure.
I mean, I'm sure it's in every industry, but as a creative, it really is effect on your work.
Yeah. I remember one time I was working on a project and I totally just overbooked myself, and I was up all night, and I sent my work at like 4:30 in the morning, and nothing, like, I barely ever look at what time people send emails, and everyone commented on it. I was like, it wasn't like a thing. I just like,
You're done.
I was just like, needed to send it. I didn't want to wake up early. I wanted to like go to bed then and like wake up at 10. So it wasn't a thing, but I just remember everyone being like, why are you up so late? I was like, well, I'm not going to tell you I overbooked myself, but it was definitely, you know, that
early riser.
Yeah, early riser, exactly. I'm always up at 4:30. But let's switch a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about competition and marketing against your direct competition. One of my favorites, Gary Vee, he says, in order to get a following, you need to give content that brings value to the end user. But there's so much competition right now. I mean, styling a bookshelf is styling a bookshelf is styling a bookshelf, right? How do you make your content that stand out when it's basically the same thing that everyone's saying?
It's a challenge. Everyone's trying to figure this little riddle out. What I think of is also not just like a picture, but it's the full picture content. I actually had this discussion the other day with my brother, talking about fitness and stuff, how everyone's doing these online streamings, and I'm like, well, people are charging people for Zoom, and I don't know, how do you compete with that? He's like, well, what can you do? Which I'm not going to be doing this, so that's why I'm going to share it. What can you do that will give people more to help the competition? And then we started talking about, is there a way to do password protected part of your website where people can go on and on demand watch the workouts that they missed and whatnot. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because most people right now, it's live, and that means that it's on that schedule. With everything going on, people's schedules are a little off. Some people have more time, some people have no time. My boyfriend's a lawyer. He's in the basement still working, and will probably be working till 10 p.m. tonight.
Oh my gosh.
And then it will be a repeat. Whereas I have more flexibility right now with my schedule. So I think it's trying to figure out how you can connect with your consumer. And I think that's really what's going to take you further. There's always going to be competition. There's always going to be someone doing something. And I think that's what makes the industry so much more fun. Push the limits in your creativity. And I think there's ways to do it without breaking the bank. There's always ways. I mean, even just ideating with my brother of like dropping stuff on Google Drive. Like, that's not going to cost me that much, but there's just efficient and creative ways nowadays with all the resources at our fingertips.
Definitely. I want to play a little game.
Okay.
So I'm going to say some words, and you need to tell me if this is coronavirus proof or not. Okay. So you're going to say in or out, and we're going to do it as fast as we can.
Okay. So in means coronavirus proof.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Ready?
Yep.
Blogs.
In.
Influencers. Influencers.
Out.
Okay. TikTok.
In.
Business Facebook page.
Out.
About me section on your website.
In.
Vlogging.
In.
IGTV.
In.
Okay, you win because it's all based on your opinion. So. You win.
I am interested to see where the influencer world will go. Obviously, I love my influencers. I got a nice little crew of influencers. However, there are challenges right now with companies being able to partner with them right now just due to shortage of staff and numbers. So I think brands are going to be very creative on how they can push stuff out. I've been working with a couple brands as myself as an influencer. And even though they might not be able to ship us stuff all the time, we have Zoom happy hours and chats. And it just shows that community as an influencer and ambassador for them, that there's more to it than just stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Awesome. Well, you guys heard it here first. Any last tips or advice you want to give to freelancers or small businesses?
Be yourself. Be kind to one another. Stay inside. It saves lives.
For sure. Awesome. Well, thank you, Erin, so much. And thank you everyone, for who were watching. This is Connect, Share, Repeat, where I go live every Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Next Friday, or this Friday, we have Sheila Peterson, a mental health specialist. So I'm super excited. We're going to be talking a lot about ways to be mentally safe and things like that on Friday. So for the full lineup, go to DyonaDesignStudio.com. And if you have any insight or if you want to refer any artists, just DM me or email me at DyonaDesignStudio.com. All right, Erin, thank you so much. Goodbye, Freddie. Goodbye, Milo.
Say bye. All right, bye. Thank you.
Good to see you.
You too.